It began not with a bang but with a chilling silence. For years, the world watched the Middle East with a weary rhythm. Conflict simmered, tensions rose and fell, but Israel's military dominance was never in doubt. Its defenses were legendary, its intelligence services omnipresent. The Houthis of Yemen? Barely a footnote. Dismissed as a distant ragtag militia. No one imagined they could threaten Israel itself. But that assumption was about to be shattered. On a quiet morning in early 2025, something changed. It wasn't picked up by satellites or spies. It was a whisper in the digital ether, unnoticed by a world distracted by summits and forecasts. No one looked to Yemen's mountains, where a new challenge was brewing. The Houthis had spent a decade adapting, innovating, and surviving. They built drones from scraps, reverse-engineered missiles, and spoke of a ring of fire around Israel, threats dismissed as empty boasts. But beneath the rhetoric, a deadly competence was growing. They were evolving, preparing for a moment no one else believed possible. The world slept, wrapped in its own assumptions. Israeli citizens went about their day, secure behind the Iron Dome and Arrow system, symbols of invincibility. The idea that a missile from Yemen could breach this shield was pure fantasy. But in the dark launch sites of northern Yemen, a new reality was being prepared. The signs, in retrospect, were there. The Houthis were not just surviving, they were preparing. The world's most advanced air defenses were about to face a test no one expected. The story everyone believed was about to be torn apart. In the silence before the storm, a new era was about to begin. The impossible was about to become real, and it would arrive faster than the speed of sound. The first warning wasn't an alarm, it was a streak of light in the morning sky. Too fast for defenses, too agile for interceptors, it struck before the sirens finished their first wail. A deafening explosion ripped through Ben Gurion Airport, Israel's gateway to the world. The impossible had happened. The shield was breached. Panic erupted instantly. The attack was a psychological atom bomb, shattering the nation's sense of security. How could a missile from Yemen travel over 1,600 kilometers and hit with such precision? The Iron Dome, David's sling, the arrow, all had failed. News channels replayed the images in disbelief. Analysts spoke in hushed tones about hypersonic technology. The idea that the Houthis could possess such a weapon was unthinkable. For the first time in a generation, Israelis felt truly vulnerable. The attack wasn't just on infrastructure, it was on the nation's psyche. The government scrambled for answers, but there were none. The Houthis hadn't just found a crack in Israel's armor, they'd blasted a hole through it. A new and terrifying chapter in the Middle East had begun. The strike on Ben Gurion was just the beginning. The Houthis unleashed a relentless campaign, swarms of drones and missiles overwhelming Israel's defenses. Suddenly, Israel faced a two-front war, familiar threats in the north and a new, unpredictable front from the distant south. The Israel Defense Forces were stretched thin, forced to defend every inch of territory. Every drone swarm drained resources and munitions at an unsustainable rate. The Houthis fought a war of attrition from afar, bleeding Israel's budget and morale. Air raid sirens became a daily reality, even in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. The sense of security that defined Israeli life was gone. The military faced impossible choices: what to protect, what to leave exposed. The psychological toll mounted. The Houthis knew they couldn't win a conventional war, but they could exhaust Israel. By opening a southern front, they changed the strategic map. Israel's advanced military was now bogged down in a high-tech war of nerves. The giant was being tormented by a distant, determined foe. The nightmare scenario had arrived. With their reach proven, the Houthis turned to the sea. They declared the Red Sea a war zone, targeting cargo vessels with missiles and naval drones. Shipping insurance soared. Global trade rerouted around Africa. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait became a no-go zone for Israeli-linked commerce. Israel retaliated with airstrikes on Yemen's Hodeidah port, aiming to cripple Houthi capabilities, but the strikes backfired. Images of destruction and civilian casualties sparked global outrage. Humanitarian groups warned of famine, allies urged restraint. The world, once shocked by the attack on Israel, now condemned its response. The Houthis cast themselves as victims, defenders of Palestine. The Red Sea crisis became a global economic problem, supply chains disrupted, costs rising. Israel found itself isolated, its actions viewed as a humanitarian disaster. The Houthis had drawn the world into their conflict, turning a regional fight into an international crisis. The balance of sympathy had shifted. As the crisis deepened, the world looked to the Arab powers, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, for leadership. Instead, silence echoed from their palaces, no condemnations, no joint statements with Israel. The Abraham Accords seemed frozen. On the Arab street, admiration for the Houthis grew. Here was an Arab group taking direct action, not just issuing statements. The Houthis became a symbol of resistance, their message resonating. While your rulers make deals, we fight for Jerusalem. Their media amplified this, elevating them from Yemeni militia to pan-Arab heroes. The Gulf monarchies faced a brutal calculation: side with Israel and risk unrest, or stay silent and let the Houthis dominate the narrative. The silence handed the Houthis a strategic victory. They challenged not just Israel's military dominance but the political authority of the region's most powerful states. In the court of public opinion, the Houthis were winning, without firing a shot at their Arab rivals. The region's alliances were exposed as fragile. Inside Israel, political pressure boiled over. Netanyahu, once the face of security, now presided over a historic failure. Protests swelled, demanding accountability for underestimating the Houthi threat. The sense of a safe homeland was shattered. Families questioned their safety. The economy faltered as tourism and investment dried up. The constant threat created a siege mentality. This was no border skirmish but a sophisticated, long-range assault. The crisis exposed deep fractures in Israel's leadership. Hardliners demanded overwhelming retaliation. Moderates warned of a quagmire. Netanyahu was trapped between factions, unable to chart a clear path. Criticism came from within the military and intelligence communities, and arrogance had blinded them to the Houthi threat. The problem was not just a single mistake, but a systemic failure. The iron wall was cracking from within. The weapon that changed everything was soon named the Palestine II. In a triumphant broadcast, the Houthis unveiled their locally made hypersonic missile. Western capitals were skeptical, but the evidence was clear. Mach 5 speeds, evasive maneuvers, unstoppable. The Palestine II was designed to defeat the world's best air defenses. Years of secret work, studying Israeli systems, had paid off. Speed and maneuverability were the key. The missile wasn't a copy, it was a custom-built solution for Israel's weaknesses. For Israel, it was a technological nightmare. The Arrow, Iron Dome, David's Sling, all were outmatched. Billions in defense investments were rendered obsolete in minutes. The Palestine II sent shockwaves through global defense industries. Asymmetric warfare had taken a terrifying leap forward. The Houthis had unleashed a new doctrine of war. The Houthis knew modern wars are fought on screens as much as battlefields. Their attack was followed by a slick media blitz, high-def footage, dramatic music, viral videos. The world saw a David and Goliath moment, the poor striking the powerful. The missile's image became a global meme, a symbol of resistance. The Houthis' media wing flooded social platforms with heroic narratives, bypassing traditional outlets. Israel's response seemed defensive, technical, no match for the Houthis' simple, powerful story. The Houthis were winning the information war, inspiring others and fueling anti-Israel sentiment. Governments felt the pressure, the narrative was out of their control. The Houthis showed that victory isn't just about destroying targets, it's about owning the story. They turned a missile strike into legend. Their influence now reached far beyond the battlefield. The world was captivated. As the dust settles, the Middle East is transformed. Israel's aura of invincibility is gone. Its technological superiority proven fallible. The Houthis, once dismissed, are now disruptors and a powerful new voice. They inflicted a direct, humiliating blow against Israel, gaining prestige far beyond their size. The Abraham Accords are frozen. Western powers are rethinking their security strategies. The crisis exposed the vulnerability of global trade and the power of asymmetric warfare. The central question is no longer about states but about groups like the Houthis. History's biggest changes often come from the margins. The Houthis have found their voice and the means to make it heard. The question now, what happens next?